एकम् अक्षरम् हृदि निरन्तरम् भासते स्वयम् लिख्यते कथम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलम् ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वम् चिन्वता मज्जता पवनचलनिर्माता आत्मनिष्ठो त्वम् देहं प्रणमात् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तथ भाषति समये सिद्धा न सद्भावतः को भावितः कुतो रधिया दृष्टा मनिष्ठा सो स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं नमो रमण. When this topic was being discussed, one issue that came up a few months back was behind the selection of this topic. Some of us bankers who had joined State Bank of Mysore in 1985, we have all regathered after so many years. We had all joined as probationary officers. And in that group, one of my friends, Murali, he used to put quotes from various great ones, various great beings, all quotes which are elevating in nature, but over a wide array of topics in spirituality itself. After a few weeks of that, what I used to do is I used to write some comments on that and link that code to self-inquiry. The common strand being that all spiritual sadhana involves turning inward, turning the attention and mind inward. With that as the basis, you may laugh at the simplicity of the connection. But then all those quotations, apparently from diverse areas, all started falling in place, and we could bring it to, in a few short sentences, bring it to how self-attention can be taken as at the root of this, because the I thought is always there hidden. And this was going across in the group that he would put the quotes and I would make some remarks and connect it with Bhagavan's Atma Vicharam. And then one of our colleagues, erstwhile colleagues who had retired as Commissioner of Income Tax in one of the divisions, I suppose it's in Kerala, he put up that why don't you compose this as a book? And the two of us, mainly he, started compiling it as a book. And to cut a long story short, he wanted my photograph to be put in the rear cover of the book. And I had forwarded to him one of my photos where my eyes were closed. Both my eyes were closed, and which is what I usually do in the self-inquiry practice sessions. And I had forwarded that photo to him. He is as experienced as I, and he was also making his own remarks on those quotations. So he remarked that this may not be a good profile to put on the cover because people will feel that self-inquiry is not connected with day-to-day living. His his take on that was that if you are closing your eyes and doing any meditation, then that meditation is not related to your day-to-day living. So I ended up forwarding him another photograph, or if I remember right, he extracted the profile from one of the group photos he had. So it ended up like that. But the point is, there is a very strong feeling that if somebody closes the eye in meditation, then they have segregated the meditation or spiritual area from the normal, from the secular or day-to-day living. Quite the contrary, that self-inquiry is applicable in day-to-day living. And that has been an attempt from Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning, that in every self-inquiry workshop, we will have one segment where we connect self-inquiry with day-to-day living. So it is that issue that we wanted to take up in this title when we named it as Open Eye Meditation. That is how to bring self-inquiry into our day-to-day living, or does it have any sense in doing so? To begin with, let's look at this topic from three perspectives. One is an event that shows that bringing Atma Vichara into day-to-day living, what happens in the day-to-day living scenario in one sense, just from an incident that recently happened. Then look at two concepts which are so apparently so deeply theoretical or deeply mired in areas of abstractness, and see how they are actually not so abstract and that they are really applicable in our day-to-day living. That is Maya and Jnana Bhumikas. These two concepts, when we take up, after just seeing how the Atma Vichara living person or the person who is following Atma Vichara, what happens at the day-to-day living perspective when the eyes are open and the Vichara is continuing, and how two major abstract concepts or teachings from Vedanta, how they are not really abstract concepts but really applicable in our day-to-day living. Let us probably take it from this angle. This topic could have been approached in a million other ways, perhaps better to, but this is the best that I can come up with today. So let's go about in that way. First, about the incident, there is this call from my friend who is from Faridabad, a youngster, maybe not so young now, maybe he's 48, 46, but compared to me, still youngster. He is an Arunachala Bhakta who also does self-inquiry. He is somebody whom I call as a Girivalam specialist. He has done over 750, 800 Girivalams in the last 10 years or so. He just lands up from Faridabad, puts up a hotel booking, and does about 30 Girivalams or so in 15 days, morning one and evening one. He has an 8-year-old son. So he was sharing with me one exchange with his son, which throws up what happens when somebody does self-inquiry and how it transforms into open-eye meditation in a house that becomes an ashram. He was saying he was exchanging with his son the story of Arjuna praying for doing tapas, penance, and praying for Pasupatashtra from Shiva. And when he was narrating that, that was what he was asking or praying for from Shiva. The boy, the 8-year-old, has responded, is that not a dumb thing to ask when mukti is there? The response from the 8-year-old boy was, this is the modern response, but see what it was. It was that, is it not a dumb thing to ask when there is mukti to be asked? And how that question came up, I have some inkling as to how that has come up in the boy because of the previous discussions we have had, Atulji and I, we have had, that actually this response from him has been from an assimilation of an incident that both of us have shared from Periperival's life. Periperival, whom we refer to as Periperiva, is Chandrasekhar Saraswati Swamigal of Kanchimat, the pontiff, 2 pontiffs before, that is the present pontiff, previous, and the prior to that. He is very well known, so I don't need to trouble much to explain about who he is. In his life, one of the recordings goes like this, that this is the recording that both of us, Atulji and I, we have shared and meditated on, and as a part of our self-inquiry exchanges, these things come up, and we have discussed that, and he has gone and shared it with the son. In his own way, the boy has understood, and at the right time when something else was being shared, like the Astra being prayed for by Arjuna, he has brought up the response that he has, that is not mumukshutva more important than the Astram. But the incident that from Periperival's life is very interesting, and it is something that can be understood only and only in the deepest of self-inquiry is possible. The incident is something like this, that Periperiva is camping in some interior part, I suppose it must have been of Karnataka or maybe Andhra Pradesh. And in that place, too, Periperiva has this practice of doing daily puja. The one who is capable of Kashta Mauna, going into Kashta Mauna, where no speaking, no seeing of anybody during that time, he, as a matter of duty, would do daily puja. And to Chandramaulishwara, the puja is done with Bilva Patras, and in that place, the Bilva Patras, the leaves are not available to the ashram people, to the mud people. And somehow a youngster, a young boy, a villager, not well read at all, he comes to know of the requirement of Swamiji and he starts bringing a basket load full of Bilvapatras and keeping it in front of the room where Swamiji was camping every day. Every day, religiously, he would bring and keep. And Swamiji records that it is of a special type of Bilvapatra, which is very sacred. I am not able to recall in what way, in the arrangement of the leaves, there is some speciality which makes it very special for offering to Shiva. And Swamiji is so happy that the Bilvapatras are there, 30, 40 days or so of his stay. Now, I'm not sure how many days. He is given the leaves daily. And at the end of this day, he calls for the boy. Who is it that brought this Bilvapatras? And the boy is summoned. And Mahapariva offers, what do you want? Ask me. You have done this service that I could do the puja. What is it that you want to ask of me? And here comes the point which went into the home of the mind of that youngster also. The young illiterate boy says, my father had predicted that I would be meeting you. My father had predicted that I would be meeting you. He said I will be meeting you. And when I meet you, I should not ask for anything other than mukti. I should not ask for anything other than mukti. So therefore, whatever it is, whatever that may be, I want to ask only for that. And Periperiva laughingly grants it and calls for the landlord in whose lands the boy is working. And he informs the landlord, if there is any ill health that comes upon the boy, you send a telegram to the mutt. But ultimately, no such telegram comes. But on a day in Kanchipuram, in a very normal day, during the day, at a time he would not go and take bath, he suddenly leaves and goes to the Kalyani and takes bath and comes. And his attendant is curious as to why he did this, why this sudden change in program. And Periperiva says, see that boy whom we met in that village, who had asked for mukti, he was living his mortal coils and he had 7 more janmas. He had 7 more janmas to take, and I had to take 7 dips in the Kalyani and offer those janmas and give him the mukti are the words of Periperiva. Now, that was put up in our group also in some ways, and there was a debate on how this is possible and how easily it defeats the mind and how self-attention is the only answer to this. To go to the mukti where the mind does not exist is the only way one can answer these happenings. How can 7 janmas in a particular plane be overcome under the blessing of another being who is with Ishvara's power blessing that? No, it is clearly beyond the mind, and one should directly go for the thought-free stilling of the eye to have an inkling of the direct experience rather than the exchange that took place. But see what happens when we even try to explore these areas about the great ones and about Atma Vicharam. Automatically, the outward relationships that we are engaged in, the open eye meditation, as it is called, our day-to-day living becomes an open eye meditation. You close the eyes and go to samadhi, your average consciousness gets transformed. In whatever way it gets transformed, it definitely gets transformed. And the outward life becomes yet another carrying out of self-inquiry, but in a relative sense that the direction of the whole team, whatever the team may be in which you are involved, gets turned inward. And this is something that is palpable for anybody who is starting the self-inquiry journey, that your outward life becomes an open eye meditation in the relative sense. Though we have tried to introduce the open-eye self-inquiry as a practice itself in 2013 when the RMCL team had gone for a workshop in Nagpur, where we had conducted self-inquiry sessions for these spiritual aspirants and seekers in Nagpur. We had brought out this self-inquiry with open eye because I had been brought to Bhagavan after a stint with Krishna Ji, J. Krishnamurti. In J. Krishnamurti, the listening itself would be converted into meditation. He would say that why do you think that why you are attending to a lecture? If you listen without the judgment in the present moment, without judging what the speaker is speaking, then this moment itself is a meditation. Now, with that having been part of me and with self-inquiry occupying me completely, we had brought out this open-eye self-inquiry that even when the speaker is speaking, as is happening now, the listener can always hold on to the eye by inquiring who is listening, and that can be transformed into open-eye self-inquiry in many areas like walking, bathing, waiting for the computer to get set up. In many of those gaps, wherever the mind is free, we can do self-inquiry, open-eye self-inquiry we can do. There was this Ramesh principle. After having this open-eye self-inquiry we had introduced, one of our devotees of Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning, one Mr. Ramesh, he had suggested a principle where all we can introduce open-eye self-inquiry. He would say that any activity in which the mind is wandering, any activity in which you can do the activity, but the mind do the activity all right, but the mind has enough freedom to go into other thoughts, that is an opportunity to do open-eye self-inquiry. If the mind can think other thoughts, then it can definitely pay attention to who is washing the vessels, who is driving the car. The peripheral vision in the car, after a lot of years of driving, you would find that the mind keeps wandering when driving is there. That is the time when you can easily pay attention to who is driving. But let us keep that part aside, that we are not going into the methodologies of open-eye meditation. But then how these abstract concepts that we have in Vedanta and in the practice of Atma Vicharam, they are really not abstract. They are really down to earth and applicable in our day-to-day living, so that in day-to-day living we can do self-inquiry. That only if they were abstract and they can be practiced only with closed eye, then we can't introduce them in day-to-day living with open eye. But if we can bring Maya and Jnana Bhumikas in the sense Jnana itself, into the ambit of day-to-day living, then one can very easily assimilate that, understand that inquiry is possible with closed eyes and with open eyes. So that was the idea, that having shown that the closed eye self-inquiry definitely makes the open eye living as a heightened company of spirituality wherever we are. Just as the boy asked that question, if an 8-year-old boy can pick it up, that asking for Pasupatashtra is a dumb thing in the modern way. When he could have asked for Mukti, that comes from the father's exploration in the self and practice of his Bhakti Marga for long years. And that natural sharing brings that kind of input from a modern child, modern youngster, that he is directly going for mumukshutva. Then it is definitely worth combining closed eye Atma Vichara with open eye Atma Vichara. But then how to bring it closer and to understand that it is very, very practicable is to bring down this abstract concepts. First, let us take Maya. And we were helped in this attempt of bringing Maya as a very practical thing by one of the letters written by Sri Nagamma. The topic she had taken up was Nididhyasana. It was read a few days back in our morning satsang, where Bhagavan singles out an author from Karnataka called Nijaguna Yogi. Somewhere 5 centuries back, he has written a book on Vedanta, and he says his comments on Maya are of most lucid nature. So Bhagavan had not only said that, but he also brought out the 5 types of Maya that Nijaguna Yogi highlights. And if we can see that those 5 types of Maya are not out there, are not merely abstract, but are relatable in our day-to-day living and will help bring Atma Vichara into day-to-day living, then that could be a good beginning of open eye meditation. The 5 types of Maya that Bhagavan quotes from, Bhagavan quotes very little, therefore whatever he quotes as a good reference must be quite something. And Nijaguna Yogi's classification of Maya goes like this, and Bhagavan's comments on them are like this. He says there are 5 types of Maya. The first one he calls as Tamas. Tamas is, according to Nijaguna Yogi, is the forgetfulness of consciousness and the rising of the non-self. The forgetfulness of knowledge and the rising of the Jada. That he calls as Tamas. So the non-self, the forgetfulness of self and the rising of non-self is the first type of Maya, which is Tamas. The second stage of Maya he calls as Maya itself. That is, in the Tamas, in the objective world of which this body is a part, this feeling that this body is separate from rest of the objective world, that he calls as Maya. That is, if one is able to feel one with the rest of the objective world, we are all connected, and that connecting energy is only running the objective world, then too there is a possibility of mukti. There is a possibility of overcoming Maya. But the Maya comes in not only from the rise of Tamas, but in the Tamas, we identify with a particular object and say that this is me and that is the rest. And that he calls as the second stage of Maya, that he names it Maya itself. That is the, in the Tamas, the separation of me from the rest of the world. And the third stage in Maya is, in the rest of the world, I have like and dislike. There is a huge area which I like. There are other huge pockets which I don't like, and there are other pockets which I am indifferent to. And this he calls as moha. Both like and dislike, let us take it as moha. So we not only separate ourselves from the rest, we have this strong idea that that place is good, this place is good, these people are like this, those people are like that. That becomes you are able to hear me? Yeah. That he calls as moha. So the first is tamas, second is maya, third is moha, fourth is avidya. Fourth is something that prevents us from learning. Whatever learning may be, for the moment, since we are in self-inquiry, let us take learning as learning about the self. The fourth one is avidya, which blocks us from learning. And the fifth is anitya. The fifth is anitya, that which is transient. So as Vintage was reading this about 4 or 5 days back, we could easily see that the sadhana can be connected from anitya to maya. that it is better to go from Anitya to Maya rather than come from Maya to Anitya, because our association with the Pancha Koshas seems to be so close, that our Jiva Bhava seems to be so strong that we may not have the perspective of Maya at the gross level. Whereas this Anitya perspective is slightly easier to have. And as is usual with these enquiries, within a few minutes, one of the devotees brought up a topic which exactly matched with this requirement, that how Maya is very practical. So let us see the practical way of adopting Maya and see how it works in our day-to-day living. There was this call which was akin to my Babaji's state a few years back. So I will refer to as my Babaji's state or as a story, because it need not refer to any particular devotee. It can be applied across the board. The situation is that it's a very day-to-day living situation where there is this Hindu daughter-in-law who has been taking care of an aging mother-in-law for many years. My Babaji took care of my mother for over 20 years. And what happens is that the aging persons get very attached to the one who is taking care. And in those 20 years, my Babaji would have left home to go on her private requirements to travel 3 or 4 times, that's all. That is, my mother's requirement for her had come to such a level that she would have traveled on her own for some requirements only 3 or 4 times. The rest of the time she would have sacrificed it for my mother. Let's take one of these situations as happening to her, would have happened to anybody. She has 2 sons, and let us take that the 2 sons have come. My eldest brother, he wouldn't get involved in these things in any way. And let us say that they have fixed a travel plan, a holiday plan. This is actually transpired, so it is not hypothetical. I am mixing the hypothetical just for the sake of removing any kind of personal element in it. But this is right down day to day. Let us say that she has planned a holiday. The 2 sons have come from abroad, and the father is also there. 10 days to Ooty. And as the days are coming near to the departure, my mother, who has agreed, she is getting very jittery. She is getting, and more pressure is put on my Babaji. And my Babaji is calling me. She is a devotee, and she is practicing self-inquiry also. In this case, I am mixing up the situation, but this is a practitioner of self-inquiry. So, and the suggestion from the devotee is that I have been practicing self-inquiry, and of late, lot of calmness is there. But then when this situation came up that we have to travel, now as the day is approaching, my mother-in-law is getting, though all arrangements have been made, she is getting jittery, and there is a lot of pressure on me. Nobody is caring, neither the sons nor the husband is caring. What am I to do? So we were inquiring, what is the Anitya from which we can begin? So the direct Anitya Bhagavan wants us to inquire is the first thought that arises to the individual. He says that the thought is Anitya, the I is Nitya. The thinker is always there. The thought that arises keeps changing. That's why he says, let go of the thought and hold the I. So see how in a practical household situation, self-inquiry is applicable, is very much applicable. So we knew, both of us knew, that the thought that we are going on a holiday should be dropped. And the I thought held. If that were possible, then the whole issue settles. The whole issue comes from calmness. But then that thought is not, we are not able to let go of that Anitya thought. That can be let go in 2 ways. It can be let go by surrender to God or by Atmavachara. Whatever you want, you do. If you allow, let that fall in place. If you don't allow, let it not fall in place. If one is able to come to that, then that first thought we are able to let go, and the I becomes pure. I can stand alone. And when the I is alone, it is with Ishvara. Now, but this is not possible because that thought is held with anxiety that we have to go. And now somebody is obstructing, and some people are indifferent. Those who have to take care are not bothering. So that means immediately that one thought, which is held with some anxiety, is now clustered with avidya. The anitya, why we are not able to let go? Because we don't see the anitya thought separately. We associate that our aim to achieve is of course paramount. We have to achieve that, which is the first error. The non-surrender and the light touch holding is not there. There is a heavy grasping. And we are not applying surrender or vichara there. Therefore, immediately it gets surrounded by associating thoughts. Those people are not in favor of this. These people are indifferent. But they are not bothering only. I am suffering so much, anxious that they should, after so many years we are going and it is not falling in place. And they are not bothered. Now, so immediately that single anitya thought is associated with many thoughts. Many thoughts it covers. That is what Nijaguna Yogi calls as avidya, which prevents vidya of the self, which prevents the knowing the anitya thought and freeing it and coming to the pure I. Now, does the avidya remain like that? No. What is it centered in? It is centered in Uti, which is a part of this world, which I feel so strongly is far better than where I am now. It must have happened some few days before, let us say, or right in the summer of the place where we are. So that place becomes so important. So in the non-self, the moha, the liking that place is good for all of us, is hidden in this. That is the maya element which actually makes us not go and look at that thought that is there. And how has that Uti arisen? It seems so huge. Yes, the temperature minimum is 20, maximum is 24. So beautifully moderate, the right temperature to go and be, and such a heaven. Now, how does that arisen? The preceding step, moha, is preceded by the maya. The maya is that in the objective world, there is this division. There is this division that some things we like, some things we don't like, some things we don't care about. And that maya of separation from the individual and the rest of the world arises because of lack of knowledge of the chit, or knowledge of the consciousness. Therefore, the non-self arises. How does that arise? How does the non-self arise? Bhagavan summarizes in Ulladu Narpadu. He summarizes in 3 verses. Verse numbers 5, 6. He says that you are not trapped in the world. You are not a being trapped in the world. You are the mind in which the world arises. And he takes us through 2 steps. He says that, is there a world without a body? Has anybody experienced a world without a body? That you are seeing a gross world because you are attached to a gross body. If you are attached to the subtle body as in dream, you will see a dream world. If you are attached to the ignorance, you will see a not knowing world of deep sleep. So it is the body to which you are attached that defines the world in which you exist. So the world is dependent on the body. And in the next verse he says, the world is nothing but the form of 5 senses. And the 5 senses are sensed by one mind. Therefore, the gross world, which appears gross, is nothing but mental forms. And in the 3rd level, he closes out how the maya arises. He says that Ulagum Arivum Ondrai Udithodungum Menum Ulagu Arivu Tannal Kulirum. That means he talks of something called as Yugapat Srishti. It is not that the world was born 5 billion years ago and I was born in 1962. No. He says that the world and the mind rise simultaneously. How can you come to simultaneity? Only if you understand that the gross is dependent on the subtle. If you go to the gross, the times become apparently real. Billions of years become real. But if you come to the mind, then you can understand creation is in the moment. In the moment, the world and mind are created. In the same moment, both of them subside. Ulagum arivum ondrai udithodum yenu. Ulaga arivu tannal olirum. Ulagarivu thondri marayadarkidanai thondri marayadolirum poondramam avde. How to come beyond tamas, beyond maya to the self? Understand that both the world and the mind rise and set simultaneously. Every moment is an opportunity to come out of maya. Every moment is an opportunity to break the bonds that are apparently there. How to do that? First, understand the gross is actually initiated and expanded by the subtle, and the subtle rises and sets only in the self, which does not rise and set, which is the truth. Now, how do we understand that the gross is present in the subtle and the subtle is the key? We should understand from the perspectives of camera and microscope. If you take how to make the drishti jnanamayam, is that if you look at the moon through a camera, I am taking these analogies from recent discussions in the YouTube about these topics by great philosophers. That it is very easy to understand that the analogy could be of camera changing aperture while photographing the moon. It doesn't change the moon. But what is this change in your inwardness that is happening? When you turn inward in self-inquiry, when you do Atma Ucharam, how does the open eye meditation change? It is because here the change is like looking through the microscope. So let me just explain what happens when you look through the microscope. You take a sample of skin, which appears like skin bit here, but you put it in a slide and put it under the microscope, a little bit of magnification, then it looks like germs there. Little bit more magnification, it looks like molecules and atoms which are present. We should understand that it is unlike the moon and the camera. Here, the skin is no more there. The snake is no more there. When your drishti becomes subtler, it becomes germs, it becomes atoms. And from the atomic and molecular level only, medicines are created, and you come back to the gross level of perception and use the medicines. But this is how Maya is broken, that when your drishtim jnanamayam kritva pashyet brahmamayam jagat, instead of sthulamayam jagat, instead of sukmamayam jagat, instead of karanamayam jagat, when drishtim jnanamayam kritva pashyet brahmamayam jagat is a very practical thing. When you understand that anitya doesn't look directly available for inquiry because it is covered by avidya, many connecting thoughts. Avidya is there and it does not remain like that. It becomes gross by moha, and that moha is present because those huge likes and dislikes in the non-self is there, and the whole area of non-self arises as tamas is the basic maya according to Nijaguna Yogi. How is this abstract? This is very, very practical and applicable to every bit of our day-to-day experience, and how one can be free if one can reduce it to the basic anitya of the first rising thought. For whom is this when we ask, or when we are able to surrender that? When we say, then we are able to dislodge that thought, that dislodging of that thought and non-attachment. Urvaruham iva bandhana. When, like the cucumber plant, the mother vine separates itself so easily from the cucumber fruit, like that when we let go of that thought, either through surrender or through vichara, then the I is pure, and in its purity, it is one in sayujya with the source. That is some amount of discussion of the abstract, which shows it is not really abstract. It's not out there just as concepts to be tussled with. It is practical, it is day-to-day living, and vichara makes you bring down Maya in day-to-day living, and your discussion with your travelers, the co-travelers, the apparent co-travelers, is full of vichara as we have the open eye meditation. Let's go on to the next set of abstract thoughts called as jnana bhumikas, the positive ones. That what happens when jnana is practiced and gained, is that also abstract? It appears very abstract. The experiences of the jnanis, it appears to be out there right from the beginning. They say that Subhecha, the steps are, the Subhecha is there, then Vicharana is there, then Tanumanasi is there, then we have the Jivan Mukti states called Sattvapatti, Asamsakti, Padartha Abhavani, and finally Turyaga. 7 Jnana Bhumikas are there. And they all look as abstract as Maya. On the one side, the problem appeared abstract, but we can see it is not abstract. It is reducible to one single thought which you are not able to let go. Immediately association with other thoughts based on some moha, based on Maya and based on tamas. But coming to the positive side, is it abstract? Like right from beginning, it appears that Subhecha, how it comes, how is it that you are interested in the Jnana Marga at all? It is very, very clear that it is by God's grace that one comes to any kind of spiritual inquiry. That the Jiva, in its limited nature, it cannot, it doesn't, there is no rhyme or reason why it would have turned in the direction of the self. There must be a guiding force. Of course, in Jnana Marga, the Ishvara's nature itself is defined to be the self. So no separate Ishvara or grace is posited in the Jnana Marga. But applying the Vichara to our day-to-day living, a great deal of respect for the Guru, like that boy was being communicated, that when you meet the Guru, when you meet the preceptor, you ask for mukti, don't ask for anything. That father had done his job when he said, when you meet the Acharya, you ask for mukti. So that understanding that there is an energy which directs us, which puts us in the right path. We could have taken 100 different options, but we took and stuck with the path of jnana because of some higher force, and that decision to come to jnana marga itself is subhecha and mumukshutva. All those 6 shat sampatti are pre-requirements to subhecha. Now, when you go into the pre-requirements of those 6, it becomes very, very difficult. As one of my other friends and I, we would discuss, if you list them out, we seem to have very little of them. But then the consolation is, if you have started self-inquiry, then we have to assume that God's grace has definitely blessed you and you are able to let go of one thought and hold the eye. That is enough, says Bhagavan. If you are able to let go of one thought and hold for whom is this thought and come to who am I, that itself takes you a long way towards the self, is Bhagavan's Upadesham. Now, Subhecha is followed by Vicharana. Vicharana, according to Shivananda Ashram, where they have put up the Jnana Bhumikas, it should be continuous, Ajyadharaya, and unrelenting, and happily done according to Bhagavan. That leads to Tanumanasi. Tanumanasi stage of Jnana Bhumika is that your mind becomes like a thread. The mind becomes weak. The holdings, the attachments of the world, the thought that arises, you are able to let go. Array, this is what is holding me. This is what makes the problem appear so huge that I am not able to let go of this particular originating thought. So the mind becomes clear in Tanumanasi stage due to Vicharana, and Bhagavan says even the Anubhava of the Akanda Akara Vritti called Spurana starts happening in that stage. In the stage of Tanumanasi, where the mind becomes weak. There is a movement of the base from world is the center and the jnana anubhava comes and goes, and one shifts base to jnana is the basis. The world comes and goes. That is called a sattvapatti. The sattva or the spurana or the sat, it becomes our base of existence, and the world experience comes and goes. That is sattvapatti. Then we have the asamsakti. Asamsakti is non-attachment. Padartha bhavani stage is called the non-perception of objects. Finally, turiyaga is called completely transcendental. Are these abstract? They are not so abstract. What happens in these stages, we can easily see that they come into our open eye meditation. What are the facts about the jnana bhumikas? One of the questions Natanananda Swami asks Ramana Maharshi is that if everybody knew that there is turiyaga, the highest state of jnana, then why does that person stay there? As each of them have a name. The Sattvapatti stage, Sattvapatti, the Asamsakti, Padartha Bhavani, and Turiyaga, they are all Jivan Muktas. They all have a name. The Sattvapatti is called Brahmavid. Then we have the next one. Asamsakti is Brahmavid Vara. And the Padartha Abhavani stage is Brahmavid Varya. And the Turiyaga is Brahmavid Varishta. Are these impractical? Are they unconnected? Do they all have to go and sit with eyes closed? Is the enquiry. Bhagavan says all of them are Jivan Muktas. There is no difference in their jnana. And when Natanananda Swami asks him, why does the Brahmavid not try to be like Bhagavan, like Brahmavid Varishta? When he knows Brahmavid Varishta, Turiyaga transcendental state is there, why does he remain as a Brahmavid? Bhagavan says, very beautifully he says, and it clears so many things for us and makes it practical. He says that to be a Brahmavid, one should have let go of all desires. All desires to become anything. One should get to be a non-doer. One should understand that it is by Ishvara's grace you have come to Brahmavid stage. That is, to be a Brahmavid itself, you should not have any desires to become Brahmavid Vara, Varya or Varishta. There is no such desire. And because you don't have desire only, you are stabilized in jnana. And the world merely comes and goes. That is called as Mandajnani. One who is a Brahmavid is called Mandajnani. But such one is hardly bothered whatever you call him. It's a jnani. That is all. And he doesn't have any desire to become Brahmavid Vara or Varya or Varishta. But we can easily see that such a one will have lots of surrender, lots of God orientation, lots of the power that saved him, lot of the Guru Tattva. The Guru Tattva adaptation in this life and expression of teachings through Guru Tattva will be very, very heavy in the Jivan Mukta who is in the Brahmavid state. You will find a lot of teaching of how Dattatreya Swami, he emphasizes that the Guru is present everywhere. The Guru Tattva is present in the good and in the bad. He is present in the Jada and in the Chaitanya. No, that Tattva could only have brought him to the stage. There is an understanding, and in whatever he speaks, he brings that Tattva into light. Whereas the next stage, the Brahmavid Vara is non-attachment. We find that the sharings of such a one will be in terms of detachment. Naturally, the teachings will be the Jnana Marga based with less dependency on the explaining of the supervening or higher powers, but the consciousness's ability to be detached. It has this inherent power to let go. So the teacher in this position given by Ishvara, because Bhagavan says Nobody wishes to be any of these. Nobody wishes to be a Brahmavid or Brahmavidvara, Varya, or Varishta. He gives a clue that it is only due to their prarabdha. It is only due to the prarabdha. As soon as a body is created, whatever it has to do is written. So it is because of their prarabdha, which has to be experienced and exhausted, that they are classified in this way. When the prarabdha is heavy, the jnani is a Brahmavid. When the prarabdha is middling, he is an asamsakti or Brahmavid vara. When the prarabdha is even less, then he does not pursue the objects. Padartha abhavani. To such a one, he is called as Brahmavid Varya. And the Turyaga doesn't need any support. He teaches through Mauna itself. He teaches through silence. The silence of the Guru automatically silences the Sishyas, automatically silences the world. That is the experience of Turyaga. But what will be the nature of the teaching of Brahmavid Varya? In the Shivananda Ashram literature, it is said that Brahmavid is already into dream state. They don't talk in terms of Ishvara, isn't it? That from waking state, which is in the waking state, you have the Subecha, you have the Vicharana, and you have the Tattva Tanumanasi. Then the Jnani, the Jivan Mukta states, they all treat the world like a dream. So the Brahmavid Vara, Varenya, Varishna, they are capable of teaching you that the world is a dream. In that dream itself, the Vara or the Asamsakti teacher, he teaches through non-attachment. The Padartha Abhavani teacher is able to teach you what we had discussed about Bhagavan. That what Bhagavan teaches as, are you in the world or is the world in you? The non-perception of objects. To the Padartha Abhavani teacher, it is so clear that the gross is really not there. If you put a microscope, it becomes atoms. If you turn inward, it becomes emotions, it becomes thought, it becomes abstract thoughts, it becomes nothing. So the Padartha Abhavani is so easy for the one who is the living of objects is so, he will ask, where is the trouble you are saying? You are saying so many troubles are there for you. They don't exist. You turn inward, hold the eye, that area itself does not exist. So that is the Padartha Abhavani. The Turyaga, he mainly teaches to silence, but he can teach all the other teachings, including cooking. Including cooking, he can teach. Because that Mauna supports all sadhana. It is not against any sadhana. Bhagavan would never say, go and do self-inquiry. He will ask what you are doing. He will ask what is the sadhana, and he will know. And he will, to a villager, he would say, go and worship the village deity. The Ellai Amman or Ellai Devata, you go and worship. That itself will bring you to the ultimate spirituality, he will say. So, the Jnana Bhumikas are not out there. The Jnana Bhumikas are not abstract. They are in day-to-day living. What we have to do? We have to understand that we should have Subecha. We should understand that that boy was asking the right question about Mumukshutva. Is it not foolish? Is it not dumb to ask for Pasupatashtra when he could have asked for Mukti from Shiva? Therefore, we should solidify there. We should have Mumukshutva as the basis. Where is the point in going from point A to point B? Only to realize that point B is only a better finite structure which will push us to point C. The goalpost will be moved. The grandson born, celebrated. If he does speaks, celebration. Doesn't speak, gone. What about his next step? The teaching. Is he put to the right school? Does he get married? What happens to his children? The point A to point B in the discrete area, is there an end? Is it going to give us the contentment? No. So the Mumukshutva begins there. It is very practical. Vicharana, the happy doing of sadhana, when the Maya comes to us as anitya vastu, as a single thought, that is the time to dispose of Maya. Not wait till it appears so gross. When it comes as the subtle thought, there itself you catch. For whom is this thought? To me. Who am I? Go back to the self, the nitya vastu. Let go of thought. With gradual letting go of thoughts, you will be able to let go of the whole waking state. Because waking state, the whole waking state is only a thought. The whole of dream state is only a thought. The whole of deep sleep is only a thought. All the three can be actually crossed when your inner tapas becomes strong due to displacement of thought by thought. One thought at a time displaced. And when the upadhis have to be brought into prarabdha, as Bhagavan says, even for jnanis, Ishvara's prarabdha only determines where they are. So what about those who are in sadhana? Definitely we have to come outward. We have to do open-eyed meditation. There, your inner closed-eye meditation, closed-eye vicharana, automatically comes in your open-eye meditation. Life becomes an open-eye meditation, and naturally we share only what we are inside. In Tamil they say, Sattil irundal aapayil varum. Only what is there in the bowl will come on to the plate through the ladle. But then these are not abstract concepts that when you start doing vicharana, the same thoughts which were strong, the every weekend outing for a great celebration, it starts weaning away. It starts becoming thinner and thinner. Few days back, my better half had come here to attend a wedding. 2 days wedding of her relative. So somehow I had whistled out of that and stayed at home. And after the 2 days of attending to the wedding, yesterday before leaving for Bombay, she was saying that now I understand why you kept away, because my mind has become so outward turned, so much in pressure now that I am waiting when I will go back to Bombay and start my Parayana and Dhyana. These were the exact words of after 2 days of celebration. And emotional outgoings, somehow I had kept away for this particular thing. Not that every time I try to. I don't make that as the rule. But she could experience that. Being a practitioner of the Parayana and Atma Vichara herself, the 2 days of celebrations and outgoings of total emotional enjoyment or celebrations there, it had made her mind, and it is so painful. Once you start coming towards the self, this going outward becomes painful. And that is what happens, that in and around you, the open-eyed meditation starts becoming natural. You find that the place where you are becomes Ramanasharam, becomes Atma Vichara Sangha. Automatically, it will take place at Ishvara's leisure. If Ishvara can determine the prarabdha of jnanis, it is he who decides in what pace the satsang becomes more and more sat-turned. But who is there to bother about that? One is just reveling in being in the self. Automatically, without any effort, the circumstances move towards the self. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.